It is 12 o'clock on Tuesday, January the 31st. The House Criminal Justice Subcommittee is now in session. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Representatives Campbell, Davis, here. Gillespie, here. Hardaway, Howell, here. Halsey, here. Johnson, here. Lamberth, here. Moody, here. Russell, Sherrill, here. Towns, Chairman Doggett.
Present.
Chairman Doggett, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, we have a calendar today, but because this is our first meeting, we are going to go over some organizational things that need to be addressed before we start. But before we get into that, do we have any personal orders? Anyone wish to be recognized on that? Seeing none, all right. We will jump right in. We've got several new members on our committee. We will forego the introductions of those members at this time. We're going to jump right into our committee policies and procedures. Each member of this committee, you should have received an email earlier today outlining these policies and procedures in which we will go by. But we're going to go down through these. Our committee is going to meet at 12 noon on Tuesdays. Members who are not going to be present need to let our office know in advance. We're going to start on time each week. To maintain a quorum, we're going to have 7 members here at each time. If you're required to leave the committee before we adjourn, please notify me or the staff in advance. All bills that will be heard in this committee must be placed on notice in the member portal by 3:30 p.m. on Wednesdays prior to the requested hearing date. Any bills placed on notice after 3:30 p.m. in a given week will be calendared for the following week. Proposed amendments must be emailed to the Criminal Justice Full Committee, which would be Chairman Halsey, by 10 a.m. on Monday, the day before the hearing. You'll find a distribution list for each committee in your address book on Outlook. Amendments may be signed by the member and scanned, or the member's electronic signature may be used. Amendments will only be accepted from the legislative email address of either the member or their legislative assistant. If substantial amendment is not timely filed with the committee, it will not be considered. So I would advise you, if you're a committee or a member that is going to be presenting in this committee, if your amendment has not been submitted on time, that you would roll it a week so that it can have consideration. Bill may be calendared 3 times in the given committee, after which time it shall be sent to the special calendar to be published with the final calendar at the end of the year. Bills not heard due to time constraints will be rolled to the next available calendar. This roll will not count towards your 3 calendar limit. And any sponsor who wishes to take their bill off notice should notify the committee in writing prior to the scheduled hearing. Bills passed by a subcommittee will automatically be placed on the next available full committee calendar unless that committee receives a written request from the sponsor to set another hearing date. When there are several members on the list to speak on an issue, I, as the chairman, may impose a time limit for comments by each member. Getting into testimony, on bills may be allowed, but may be restricted. We are going to set that time presently at 3 minutes per witness. Testimony must be emailed. If you wish to testify, you must email my office 24 hours in advance prior to the hearing date, so that'll be 12 p.m. on Mondays. Any handouts that wish to be distributed should be emailed to my office for approval in 24 hours in advance. Physical copies may not be handed out in committee, and any visual presentations, such as PowerPoints, they will require a 48-hour advance notice for approval. That way we can arrange those AV capabilities. All calendar information will be made available electronically via the member dashboard. Marked calendars will also be emailed to committee members beforehand. Physical copies will not be provided to the members. And as always, cell phones, be sure to silence those phones while we're in committee. For those that are in attendance in the audience, we ask respectfully that you would do the same. Silence your phones. If you're going to have to use a phone, please step out of the room to make those calls. Any questions or comments by the members? I will say that we are honored to have serving with us this year as our full chair, Chairman Bud Halsey. Great to have you. For each and every member that we have on the committee, we're honored to have you as well. Our research analysts, some of our staff this year, John Gleason. Our attorneys will be Michelle Fogarty and Sean McMinn. Intern is Lauren Stanfield. Where you at, Lauren? There you go. And Miss Emily Hamby is my assistant. Our Sergeant of Arms, the one and only Mr. Tyler Muniz. Mr. Tyler, do you have any weekly words of wisdom for us today?
I, in fact, do have some weekly words of wisdom. Good morning, everyone. Today's words of wisdom are brought to you by Albert Einstein. Wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of a lifelong attempt to acquire it. Have a blessed day.
Thank you so much for that. We also, our clerk, Miss Alexa Anger. Close enough? Sorry, I tried. And I will say that for those, when you come in and testify, if you are on the list for testimony, I may accidentally mispronounce your name, and that is not something I'm trying to do to be rude or offensive. It just happens, so I apologize. Anything before we get started? Any members wish to say anything? If not, we're going to jump right into our calendar. House Bill 3 by Representative Sapicki. You are properly recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill is in its proper form. A brief description of the bill, because I know you are busy today, and I do have a couple people that wish to testify on this bill. Members, House Bill 3 expands the offenses of assault and aggravated assault against a first responder or nurse to include offenses against any healthcare provider who is licensed, certified, or otherwise authorized or permitted by the laws of any state to administer healthcare in ordinary course of business or practice of a profession, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our sponsor? Representative Johnson.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was curious, are there other states that do this, sometimes with enhancements, making other groups, putting them ahead of others? I understand there are a lot of attacks on medical personnel. Are there any other states that do this, that demonstrate that enhancing these punishments are effective? I'm curious to know, not just do they do them, but have they been effective? Because a lot of times with enhancements, we don't see that there's an effectiveness after that.
To answer the question directly, as I know there are other states considering this legislation this year. I'm not aware of this bill being passed with the enhancements. There are enhancements in first responders that are already there to protect them. One of the things that we're seeing right now in our healthcare workers profession, that assaults, if you work in a healthcare profession, you are more likely by 20% to be assaulted in your job. Down in Murray County at Murray Regional, we now employ 18 security officers and 4 guard dogs to deal with these assaults that are happening on our healthcare workers. It's not easy to realize that a dog showing up to an issue tends to calm people down very quickly. But this is getting to the point where our healthcare workers are starting to decide whether or not it's worth being in the business right now when you can have people that you're trying to help assault you. And so we're trying to extend the coverage to provide a level of, I guess, a level of respect for our healthcare workers, and trying to set a tone in Tennessee that do not assault the people that are trying to help you.
Is there any research to indicate like how many of those folks might have mental health issues, dementia? You know, a lot of, you see more in the health field because of some of the folks that they're dealing with. And so I'm just wondering what the research says and research of success based on enhancements.
Well, the enhancements are going to allow the opportunity for those individuals who may not have, who are not getting the treatment they have. With the enhancement there's a mandatory minimum of incarceration. That would give the locals the ability to start the process of intervention on either mental health, behavioral health, drug addiction, alcoholism, things that may be the underlying cause of this. It might be a way for those to get them channeled into a program that might help them out. One of the major incidences we're seeing right now against health providers is drug-related and behavioral health-related, people in search of the meds that they were getting before. The problem is the healthcare providers are starting to say, no, we need to go a different way, and people don't want to hear that answer, and that's when the fights break out.
I hope that is what will happen. I have some concerns when you say that, you know, what we would like to see happen. Unfortunately, corrections doesn't always agree with the things that folks want to see, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one of the bills we passed, I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago, we provided more money for our local sheriffs to get into these interdiction processes, and my sheriff down in Murray County has seen a tremendous result from this, of people getting into these programs, getting the help they need, and getting their lives turned around. So anything we can do to get people pushed in the right direction to make sure that they're able to take care of themselves, not only benefits them, but it benefits all of us in Tennessee.
Thank you for that. Two things. One, I forgot to mention earlier. We've got a hard stop at 1:30 in here today. Two, we do have witnesses here to testify. I've got Chairman Halsey on the list. You can wait. You can wait. All right. Without objection, we're going to go out of session. We're out of session. We're going to hear from James Howley. If you would come up here to the microphone and introduce yourself. You'll have 3 minutes for testimony, and then at which point we'll be keeping the clock up here, and we'll let you know, and then we'll have Mr. Chandler Anderson follow you up. You'll introduce yourself. You'll have 3 minutes for testimony. Then we'll have questions from the committee. So, Mr. Howley.
My name is James Hawley. I've been a nurse for 25 years, and before that, I was a paramedic in the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens. During my career, I've been punched, kicked, spit on, coughed on, stabbed, and verbally threatened. But I love the work. I was asked to talk about an incident that happened about 12 years ago at a local hospital here in Nashville, where we had a gentleman come in, and he had suicidal ideations, and while he was being medically cleared for other help, he decided he wanted to leave, and that was not going to happen. I went in as the charge nurse, and I sat down and I spoke to him in a calm voice, saying that we were very concerned about the threats that he made on his own life, and that we were going to keep him safe until an evaluation could have been accomplished. He pulled the IV out of his arm. When I went to bandage his arm, he lunged at me. The security guard laid on top of him. He got the gun out of the security guard's holster, put it in my stomach, and attempted to pull the trigger while verbally saying, "I'm going to kill everybody in this room." And there were 6 of us in the room, including 2 certified techs, a doctor. So there were people in that room that weren't necessarily covered by the bill that's on the books right now. The gentleman was arrested, and he got 60 days probation and was released early for good behavior. We had another gentleman come into the ER, and our registration clerk asked for an ID, just a name and a date of birth, and he pulled a pair of scissors and tried to stab her in the neck because he was tired of waiting. So my testimony here is to say that there are many people on our team that work inside the hospitals that aren't necessarily a nurse or a licensed professional that aren't covered by the current bill. The other thing I wanted to say was that if these same people with these aggressive acts were to do it on a street corner, you know, they would be arrested on the spot, regardless if they were drunk. And I think Ms. Johnson had a good question about mental illness and about alcohol and drugs in the system. But these same people would be arrested on the spot, and they would be processed, you know, and all those things would have been taken into consideration. It just seems when you enter a hospital, you get a free pass, you know, and there are many people putting their health and well-being at risk. Our screeners now, you know, with the pandemic, with the recent pandemic that we had, just asking people to come in that want to be seen to put a mask on. They're verbally assaulted, they are coughed on, things were thrown at them, you know, and these people here need protection, you know.
I'm
Things
sorry,
are-
Mr. James, your
This is my 3
time is
minutes.
up. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Doggett.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll hear from Mr. Chandler Anderson. If you will introduce yourself for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes for comments.
My name is Chandler Anderson. I'm an advanced practice. Can you hear me now? Oh. Chandler Anderson. I'm a nurse practitioner down in Columbia, Tennessee. To your point, Ms. Johnson, I see psych patients every day at a local inpatient psych hospital. This wouldn't be something that we would be doing for those people because we identify they have an acute mental illness that we know when we go to work every day this is possible. But to quickly, as I can, tell you the story, last year I had a call that I never thought I'd get from one of my nurse practitioners who said, I've been punched in the face by a patient. And I said, I'll be right there. So went to the office. I own a chain of clinics there in Columbia. And on the way there, I'm thinking, man, somebody wanted drugs. She told them no. They punched her. That's a huge part of the opiate epidemic. If you talk to providers, it's the path of least resistance. It takes 5 minutes to write a Percocet prescription or send it electronically. It takes 30 to argue with somebody about why they don't need it. And then you're in a room alone where there's no camera, there's no witness. I think my friend Randy Tidwell, who's a NP in Portland, was beat down into the floor. His face was broken, and the police had to come. The guy was arrested. I get to my clinic, back to the story, and I go in, I ask the NP, what happened? And her nose is bleeding. I had to sew her nose up. She said, I honestly don't know, because all she was upset about is I didn't have a CT scan someone else ordered. And I told her, give me 24 hours and I'll get it, and then we'll get you referred. But any of you that have ever had to have a medical referral to a specialist, they want every recent scan you've ever had. And ironically, this NP's husband worked for the person we were going to refer him to, so she knew that this would expedite things. And the girl turned around and punched her in the face. Now, thankfully, due to General Cooper down in the 22nd Judicial District and Bucky Rowland, our sheriff, she's spending 30 days in jail. The good thing, though, Ms. Johnson, and the good thing about Bucky Rowland is he has Michael Fulbright there who helps make sure these people get the mental health assessment. That girl has some mental health problems. She wasn't having an acute thing that day, but she has some anger issues to punch somebody in the face because you didn't immediately get what you wanted. And that's where our society regretfully has gone to. PAs, physician assistants, aren't covered under the current legislation. Physicians aren't. Certified nursing assistants aren't. Respiratory therapists aren't. Radiology people aren't. Physical therapists, occupational therapists. That's why it's important to expand that. You know, we don't want to create special groups of people, but we're the only people that work intimately behind closed doors without a witness. You can't put cameras in exam rooms where we may be attacked. You know, Randy's nurse found him down the floor after he tried to fight back. You know, we're all getting older and can't do that anymore. So,
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for your testimony. Our time's up. Members, do we have any questions or comments for our guest? Chairman Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If somebody's charged with assault, What are you allowed to tell the court that does not violate HIPAA?
Once it's a legal matter, HIPAA no longer provides any protection because then it's a flow of events. And so HIPAA, the Office of Civil Rights, we actually contacted them when this occurred. HIPAA kind of goes out the window with that because it's now a legal issue. I mean, the attorneys may speak to that too, but it kind of goes out the window.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you both for your time. Thank you for being here with us today and for your testimony. Without objection, we're going to go back into session. Chairman Halsey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, to follow up on the representative from Knoxville, you and I have talked, and I have problems with passing legislation that makes the administration of justice unequal and tips the scale and takes the blindfold off the lady. You and I also talked about the possibility, if this comes out of this committee between now and the full committee, there might be a solution to level the playing field for everybody. Is that still a possibility?
Mr. Chairman. Yes, it is, Chairman Elsie.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, this does not reclassify healthcare professionals as first responders.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for our sponsor? Seeing none, we're now voting to send House Bill 3 on to full criminal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes prevail. You move on to full criminal.
Thank you. Thank you, committee.
Item number 2, House Bill 77 by Leader Lamberth. You are properly recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This deals with a relatively nuanced issue dealing with ignition interlock devices. They currently have GPS units on them, but it is not something that there are rules and procedures for. The department was going to do this a couple of years ago through rule, and quite frankly, I felt like it was more appropriate that it come through a statutory change, and that's what this does. It makes it very clear they cannot use these GPS devices to track anyone. It is merely geotagged at the time that a breathalyzer sample is taken.
Thank you. Any questions for our sponsor? We do have on our list a Mr. Ben Voitas from Department of Safety.
It's not necessary, Mr. Chairman.
Not necessary? Okay. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we're now voting to send House Bill 77 on to full criminal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You move on to full criminal. Item number 3, House Bill 144 by Leader Lamberth. You're properly recognized, Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is another bill that makes some minor changes in our statutory framework in dealing with DUI thirds or subsequent. This would require, unless the judge feels like there's a reason not to, a transdermal monitoring device that senses whether or not someone's been drinking alcohol. By the time they get a third offense DUI, obviously there's a heightened risk. It also, in the first part of this, actually reduces the time before someone would be eligible to be able to go off to inpatient treatment. Right now, that's at 25 days on a DUI second offense. The trick is on a DUI second offense, the mandatory minimum is 45 days. Most of your treatment facilities are 28 days in length. So this reduces it down to 17 days so that someone actually has an incentive to go ahead and go off to treatment, because now if they do it, they stay in for an additional week. So unfortunately, what we've seen is a good number of individuals that are eligible for treatment simply don't go. And so this fixes that problem.
Any questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, we're now voting to send House Bill 144 on to full criminal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes prevail. You move on to full criminal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Item number 4, House Bill 9 by Representative Todd. You are properly recognized. You do have an amendment on this bill here, coded 3058.
That's correct, sir.
You wish to proceed with that amendment?
I do, sir. It makes the bill.
You are recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amendment 1 does make the bill. As amended, House Bill 9 clears up confusion in the law and clarifies that adult-oriented performances may only be held in age-restricted venues and may never be held on publicly owned property. Under current law, businesses that predominantly provide adult-oriented entertainment must be licensed and age-restricted to prevent children from entrance. This bill simply clarifies that if this type of adult-oriented entertainment occurs in locations that are not required to be regulated under the current adult entertainment law because the adult entertainment is not a predominant business, like a restaurant, for example, then that business must ensure that the performance is age-restricted and children are not allowed to view the performance. The bill only applies to performances that are considered harmful to minors under the state's obscenity laws, which are those performances that are overtly sexual in nature and, quote, appeal to a prurient interest. This is a well-understood term in Tennessee obscenity case law surrounding what it means to appeal to a prurient interest. This is a common sense child safety bill that I would appreciate the committee support for.
Thank you. Any questions for the sponsor on the amendment? Representative Johnson.
Okay, you stated that there's already these laws against this, obscenity laws against this for children. I'm curious how this is needed when we already have those laws on the books.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is some confusion in the law about what performances are actually covered, and I dealt with this in my own community this past year, and this is just simply to clarify exactly what is intended in the law that we've had for many decades, but makes it very clear to the public what is crossing the line as harmful to minors.
I'm not sure that it is clear. I know one thing that's noted in the bill is go-go dancing, and I kind of had to go back to Nancy Sinatra and her video of these boots are made for walking, which is go-go dancing. And I don't see how that's harmful to children. Is it just harmful to children if someone is wearing clothes not aligned, that some people think aren't aligned with their sex? Is that what makes it wrong? I'm trying to understand what it is you're actually directing this bill towards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill states very clearly what is included. We already have in law the go-go dancers and strippers and strip clubs, but there are certain things that are not included, and this just makes sure that it's very, very clear that if you're doing something that's going to be harmful to minors, which has already been established in law, then it must be age restricted.
So would you consider men in tights to fall under this? I'm curious why maybe dancing, but there's nothing sexual in nature to these things. I don't know if you've been to drag shows. I have. I've seen things in the community, and I just haven't seen what people are saying are happening. I'm curious how many drag shows you've been to, and I'm curious why targeting this, because I'm thinking about a place where men wear tights in WWE wrestling, and 1/3 of the audience at least is children, and they do things like handcuff their opponent to a rail and shock their testicles. I think that's kind of bad. But somehow someone dressing up and dancing is the problem, because I can tell you that people at drag shows have more clothing on as a rule than folks in wrestling. And why are we targeting this one thing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so far, Mr. Chairman, the only person that's mentioned anything about drag has been the representative from Knox County. I haven't said a word about that.
Representative Johnson.
Last thing, this seems like a bill that is directed at a particular community. I think it's going to have a lot of unintended consequences when you think about people who might be, I think, for example, in Knoxville, we have outdoor concerts a lot of times, people dancing and a lot of goth music, the guys wear skirts, things like that. I mean, what is this? how is this going to affect our community? This seems a bill directed specifically at hate, and I haven't seen any evidence of a single damaged child from any of this.
Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious, I don't recall any time in history here in the legislature where we've included the words "or similar entertainers" in a definition in the law. Could there be anything more vague than "or similar entertainers"? Can we remove that language? Or something, because that would include what the lady mentioned, I would think. I've expressed this to you in a private conversation, my concern, like, for example, Tennessee's own Miley Cyrus at Bridgestone Arena. I've seen her there in the past myself. Would that cross the line? Could she be subject to a pair of handcuffs based upon the vagueness of "or similar entertainers"? Thank you.
Representative Campbell, if I may, that is, in his language, that is already referenced, that is already in the code, that "or similar entertainers. And we can go out of session to hear from legal if that would be something that you want to hear from.
Yes, please.
We'll go out of session to hear from legal services.
Michelle Fogarty, Legal Services. Under 7-51-1401 in part definitions, the term adult cabaret uses the phrase "or similar entertainers." The bill, as amended, defines entertainer and references back to an adult-oriented establishment, which is also currently defined in 7-51-1401.
Do you have any questions for legal? Representative Campbell.
Or similar entertainers. Can you tell me legally what that means?
The amendment defines an entertainer as a person who provides entertainment within an adult-oriented establishment, regardless of whether a fee is charged or accepted for entertainment, and regardless of whether the entertainment is provided as an employee, an escort as defined in 7-51-1102, or an independent contractor, or adult cabaret entertainment, regardless of whether a fee is charged or accepted for entertainment, and regardless of whether entertainment is provided as an employee or an independent contractor. So they would have to also come within, it's a person providing entertainment within an adult-oriented establishment or an adult cabaret entertainment.
Thank you. Can we go back to the bill sponsor?
Well, Representative Gillespie, did you have a question for legal services?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You keep on saying that this is applying only to adult-oriented establishments. Are you saying that that's what other entertainer is defined, if only they're in an established adult entertainment place?
The amendment defines an entertainer as a person who provides entertainment within an adult-oriented establishment or an adult cabaret entertainment.
So, am I correct in hearing that this would not apply? This entire this amendment would not apply to a place like the Orpheum Theater because it is not an adult establishment, or FedEx Forum because it is not an adult establishment? Is that what I'm hearing?
That would depend on whether or not they were doing an adult cabaret entertainment.
On a permanent basis or at any given time?
The bill restricts adult cabaret entertainment by prohibiting it from being performed on public property or in a location where it can be viewed by a minor.
Okay.
And so then you have to go back to what adult cabaret entertainment is defined as to determine how it applies.
Okay.
I do want to point out that the sponsor did say drag show when he was talking about this community, so it was brought up by the sponsor.
Representative, we can't make any motions while we're out of session at the moment because we're. Oh, okay. All right. Any other questions for legal services? We're going to go back into session. Representative Campbell, do you wish to speak to the sponsor on this?
Thank you. Just in final follow-up, as a promoter of entertainment myself, the word similar entertainers and the possibility, if that is applying to any venue inside or a public performance, if we're having a professional wrestling show at a county fair and some promotion decides to have a bra and panties match, is that, potentially a crime under this legislation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. Again, we go back to the definition in Section 1. Adult cabaret entertainment means adult-oriented performances that are harmful to minors. That's very key here. That's defined in 3917-901, and it features go-go dancers, erotic dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male or female impersonators, or similar entertainers. So that first part defines exactly what category those would have to be in to be a violation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gillespie, you're on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to kind of ask the same question I just asked legal to you, and just kind of ask: Is this going to be just shows, performances on public property, or are we also stepping into, say, a restaurant that would to have some sort of, whether it be for fee or not, or a performance venue that normally maybe hosts Broadway shows, things of that nature? Does this come into play?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does. If they meet the definition that's defined in Section 1A for an adult cabaret entertainment, if it meets that definition and they have it anywhere, public property or even private, it has to be an 18 and up venue. Cannot be in front of children.
Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And does this bill only apply to minors not to be able to view sexually explicit shows?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir, as defined in the bill.
So if it's not sexually explicit, they can still go and watch shows this type, like Miss Doubtfire?
That would be correct. If it doesn't have if it's not sexually adult-oriented and meet the definition as harmful to minors under 3917-901, then it wouldn't apply here.
And how do you define minors?
Under 18.
Good. Thank you.
Defined in the law.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leader Lamberth.
Question on the amendment.
Question's been called on the amendment. Any objection? Seeing none, we're now voting on adopting Amendment 3058 on the House Bill 9. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The ayes prevail. We adopt. We are now on House Bill 9 as amended. We do have several that have signed up for testimony. Without objection, we will go out of session. We'll hear from Stephen Puckett. Are you here? Okay. Reverend Stephen Romero? Ramo, I'm sorry. You're Puckett? Okay. Just have you a seat there. What we will do is, I've got three more on the list after these two. We'll hear from everyone here that presents, and then we will allow the committee to have questions. So Stephen, if you will go first, introduce yourself. For the record, you'll have 3 minutes for comments.
All right, I will do the best I can. I'm still recovering from the infamous crud. So, yeah, it's like it always sticks with you long after the virus is gone. I'm Stephen Puckett. I'm from Hendersonville, Tennessee. I am speaking in opposition to this legislation because I am concerned about the subjectivity of the way this legislation is written. The issue, because the issue is not really, whether it is viewed as harmful for minors, it's by who is the key, is, when it comes to regardless of intent. Because if there are people who can sexualize anything by their own personal fantasies, and they could come in and claim that that is the case. And so that leads to the problem, given that much of the messaging that has been behind this bill has reached a point where it raises the concern of blood libel, which is designed to target individuals in order to drive violence towards them through false claims and deceptive claims. This seems to be an ongoing problem, given that last session there was an attempt to target teachers and librarians with a similar attack, in which the false arrest would be the blood libel that would be used to destroy their lives. In fact, I think Representative Campbell really kind of summed up my concerns, given his experience and how this would impact it. So that's my concerns.
All right, thank you. Stephen Ramo, you'll have 3 minutes. Introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 3 minutes for comments.
Good afternoon, and thank you for hearing me today. My name is Steve Ramo. Sorry. It's on. Testing one. Can you hear? There we go. The light was on. Good afternoon. I'm so proud to be here today to represent myself and my community. My name is Steve Ramo. I'm a drag performer. I'm an ordained minister. I'm a spouse of a loving husband. I have also been a drag entertainer for 20 years in the great city of Nashville and the great state of Tennessee. I have been very blessed to do what I do. And I am surrounded by people that I love all the time. And I think I'm surrounded by some of those folks in this very room. When I met with my state senator, Mr. Pody, who I wish was in the room right now, we had a very constructive meeting. And I was told, well, that doesn't happen very often with a conservative gentleman like Mr. Pody. We met for over a half an hour. And I was proud of that. I was proud to share that. And he told me, you should probably testify when this comes up in front of committee. And I'm here to say that I'm following the advice of my elected representative, whether or not I voted for him. But he said, don't be emotional. State the facts. And we've heard some facts, but I'm an emotional person, and I can't leave emotion out of this. This morning, I heard some news that a transgender friend of mine who fled the United States and to seek refugeeism in Canada was found unresponsive. That is not the result of this bill, but leaving this country was a result of hate and rhetoric against his trans community. So it's impossible for me to leave emotion out of this, because this bill does touch on me, my community, which includes all LGBT people. And I have news for you. Not all drag performers are part of the LGBT community. A lot of the actors that you see portraying other genders on TV or in movies or on stage are not gay or bisexual or transgender, but a lot are. So this bill does target our community. And guess what? There are also gay wrestlers too. It affects many people. I would also like to share a message that I received and I am going to read direct from my phone, from a very young person on the morning of November 16th, which was shortly after this bill was filed. I'm not going to share his name, but I did tell him that I was thinking of him this morning.
Our time is up. I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up.
It is
if we have an opportunity later, if a member asks questions, we'll give you an opportunity to continue speaking.
Thank you.
So thank you for your time. Next on our list is Ellen Vessels. I hope I said that correctly. Reverend Jeannie Alexander and David Taylor. Who would like to go first?
Do you all have a preference? Okay. My legal name is Ellen Vessels, but as a non-binary trans person, my common use name is actually Hella Skeleton. I'm an actor and a drag performer in Cannon County. Last year, my friends and I did this play. It's called I Am My Own Wife. It's the true story of Charlotte von Malsdorf. She was a trans woman who survived the Nazi and communist regimes in Germany. At age 16, she faced an SS firing squad, and they wanted to shoot me. I looked down. I didn't want to see them shoot. I thought, I'll wait until I feel it. But when I looked to the ground, I saw the boots of a commander. Are you a boy or a girl? And I thought, if they shoot me, what's the difference between a boy and a girl? Because dead is dead. She survived the Nazis, and later the communists took over. And then came the wall, and for us in East Berlin, it was finished, gay life. We were not supposed to exist, persona non grata. So I thought to give homosexual men and women a community in this house. She bought every single item in a gay restaurant that was going to be bulldozed by the communists and hid it in her basement and ran an underground gay cabaret for 30 years under the watchful eyes of the Stasi. Why am I bringing up this play? Because we want to do this play at Tennessee Tech next year, a public institution. And if this bill passes, that will be a crime. Our cast includes trans women playing trans women characters, trans masculine non-binary people playing cis men characters, a cis man playing male and female characters, and even an intersex actor playing a lesbian who may have been a trans man. I know that a lot of y'all don't really understand the words that I'm saying right now, and that's why you should really, at the very least, table this bill so that you can learn more about our community before you pass bills that target us. I don't think that I deserve to be locked up because I'm a person who sometimes looks like a boy and sometimes looks like a girl, and I think I should deserve to be cast in the part that's right for me regardless of the gender of that role. Another reason I'm bringing up this play, the parallels are really obvious. We have a government that's trying to restrict our rights. We have extremist hate groups on our door and coming into our nightclubs and shooting us dead. Last week I went to a drag show and I was forced to walk past a mob of masked men with guns and swastikas to get into that drag show. So I don't compare this to exaggerate. I compare it because it's really happening. And lastly, because we may soon have to answer to armed officers asking us, are you a boy or a girl? But the main reason that I wanted to bring up this play is because not one, but two repressive regimes tried to silence Charlotte von Malsdorf, and she's still with us here today. While y'all are building a culture that's predicated on punishing people who are different from you, my community has been perfecting self-love into an art form, and that art form is drag. We've been building a culture based on love, on resilience, and on protecting one another. And the more that you attack us and the more you push us underground, the deeper our roots get and the more intertwined our roots get, and we come back stronger. We are fully out of the closet, and no law that you pass is going to put us back into it.
Thank you. Next, you'll have introduce yourself for the record. You have 3 minutes for comments.
I'm not sure my mic is.
There you go.
All right. Thank you. My name is Jeannie Alexander. I am a reverend, a former attorney, and ethics professor. I'm with Earth Fire Abbey in Old Hickory, Tennessee. And I promise you, Helen and I did not compare notes before this morning. I'm here because House Bill 9 is, I think, an incredibly dangerous bill. I'm thinking about Representative Johnson's about unintended consequences, and I am here because I think that there are intended consequences. I don't believe that House Bill 9 has ever been just about drag, and it is not about children. House Bill 9, along with 13 other bills this session targeting transgender people and the LGBTQ community at large, which I am part of, is about legislating a very specific theocratic worldview. These bills, which we have seen filed in over 30 states now, with Tennessee, Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Arkansas being the very worst, come from the Heritage Foundation, the Family Research Council, and the Alliance Defending Freedom. These organizations promoting these bills do not believe that transgender even exists, and thus they are justified in the eradication of transgender people from public life, from private life. None of these bills should be viewed in isolation. This is not just a bill about performance. None of these bills should be viewed in isolation, but examined as a whole, as an effort to criminalize and disappear people, people who are our family members, our loved ones, ourselves. What is performance? Is it preaching? Is it public speaking? Is it being in a play? And what is pure interest if you legislate that some people are obscene by their very existence, so that everything they do in public then relates to a prurient interest? These bills have gone beyond trying to silence voices. They are trying to erase lives. We have been here before, and we know how this ends. May of 1933 in Weimar, Germany, the first large Nazi book burning of over 20,000 volumes took place at the Hirschfeld Institute for the Science of Sexuality, the first institute for gender-affirming care. The first targets are always small groups of unprotected and unjustly vilified minorities, trans people, queer people. What's happening here today is what fascism looks like. Cookeville, a week ago, protesters outside of a drag show were flying a Nazi flag and assured us that if people would not get behind the American flag to get rid of those of us defending that show, that they would get behind the Nazi flag again. Remember, every law passed in Nazi Germany was passed legally. So stop going down this road, stop trying to criminalize my life, and stop trying to legislate my wife out of existence. Thank you.
Thank you. If you will, introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 3 minutes for comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's David Taylor. I'm co-owner of 4 businesses in Nashville that are welcoming to everyone but cater predominantly to the LGBTQ+ community. My businesses alone have contributed more than $13 million to the state in form of sales and liquor taxes since we opened. And each year, more than 200 people make all or part of their living from our businesses, including 13 full-time and more than 60 guest drag performers, with a total payroll of $3 million annually. And we're just one of many such businesses in our state. We're proud of our performers. 7 have been cast on the national television show RuPaul's Drag Race, with 2 placing in the top 3 of their seasons. Our shows are fun, lively, campy, theatrical, clever, dramatic, and joyous, but never of a prurient nature. And our performers are certainly not adult cabaret performers. We know this because we have a Tennessee liquor license and are bound by Tennessee liquor laws. These laws are aggressively enforced by the Alcoholic Beverage Commission and prohibit nudity, as well as simulated sexual acts and other lewd behaviors. In our more than 20 years in business, we've not received a citation for one of our drag performers. In short, the Tennessee ABC has never viewed our performers as cabaret or adult performers, with 2 decades of monitoring our shows and operations as proof. Another business of ours offers a downtown bus tour hosted by drag performers, and it's frustrating to us that a fully costumed drag queen seen through a bus window lip-syncing Tina Turner might be charged under this bill, especially since not one of our performers on this bus has ever shown more skin than a Titans cheerleader on a Sunday afternoon. This bill places male or female impersonation in the categories of strippers, and if you look at this law, you'll see go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers. All of those relate to behavior. Male or female impersonation relates to your choice of clothing. And that's a huge difference, and I hope that you'll note that. And who else might be included? It's been noted. Is it the group of birthday girls in Memphis that decides to dress like Elvis for the night and dance on the street? Or megastar Harry Styles as he performs in Knoxville in a dress? Or our theaters and TPAC when they want to perform Hairspray, Chicago, or Mrs. Doubtfire included? Can they be arrested and charged? And what about Halloween? Can my daughter walk down this public street as Batman? And if impersonators are labeled adult cabaret performers, what impact does that have on my liquor license and my ability to operate as I have for the past 20 years? So many of our state's hotels and restaurants also offer popular drag brunches as tourist draws. They happen in every one of our major cities, and there are at least 10 in Nashville alone. Are their performers subject to arrest and fines if a minor walks by and sees a performance, even if it's just a Dolly Parton impersonator doing 9 to 5? In his inaugural address just a few days ago, Governor Lee asked for a return to civility, and I applaud that sentiment. I believe in being civil and welcoming to all Tennesseans. But legislation like this isn't about civility or even protecting our children. It's about curtailing business and the free expression of our citizens with a giant can of worms regarding interpretation and enforcement, and I ask you to oppose this bill.
It was perfect timing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for our guest? Any of those that have spoken already? Representative Johnson.
I'd like to hear from the young person.
Use your microphone, please. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to hear from the young person that sent an email that couldn't be here.
And I'm happy to share that with you. This was sent to me on the morning of November 16th. I'm so scared right now for our community. How do you stay so positive when you see all this legislation being put in place about public drag? I feel so dehumanized. It's like step by step, they are trying to erase visibility, and I fear for the day that we will all end up being illegal, or worse. I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard day. When I read that to myself, the word dehumanize came to mind, and I'm with my two friends over here, and of course, David. When did I first hear that word as an adult? Was dehumanize was when Nazis decided that certain people weren't worthy of life. They were less than human, so they eradicated them and attempted to eradicate them and sponge them out. I don't want that to happen to this young person who reached out to me in fear of their life because they felt that language like this was dehumanizing. I hope that word resonates with you guys. I never want a young person or anybody to feel dehumanized by our government, by the state, by us. Please remember him.
Thank you. Chairman Holsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Taylor, is a minor allowed in your establishment right now? Did you say it was a bar that you have?
Yeah, yes, sir. We don't allow minors in our establishments or on our bus. We are concerned about the way the law is in terms of someone seeing a performer from the street, again, a fully costumed, fully clothed performer, and would they be charged? But it also, as many of the others have said, vague enough. I think many of you have said when you all were questioning the bill, it's vague enough to really not be sure why it's there, and and how it might apply. What are the unintended consequences of the bill? But and if male and female impersonation is deemed to be an adult cabaret, who's the arbiter of that? I mean, at what point do you come in and say, no, that that performer's doing Beyonce, that's okay. That performer's doing Lil' Kim, that's not okay. Even though, would we be required to have an adult license for a bar that's been operating for 20 years and paying taxes and that type of thing? It just gets really cloudy and muddy, and I'm not sure, since because of our ABC liquor license, we're bound by very strict, anybody that has a liquor license, every hotel that has a drag brunch is bound by the same liquor license that prohibit, the type of lewd behavior that no one really wants to see children exposed to. And so whether it's a G-rated performance at the Bobby Hotel downtown, or if it's, a different type of performance, whatever type the performance is, you can't have the types of behavior that are described in this bill and have a liquor license. And so that's why it's to me cloudy, redundant, and not necessary.
Any other questions for our guest? Seeing none, we're going to go back into session. Thank you all for your time. Those that have testified today, thank you for coming. We're back on House Bill 9 as amended. Representative Todd, you wish to make any comments?
Well, I appreciate the public coming in and testifying, expressing their opinion. That's what our Constitution directs them to do. They're supposed to instruct their representatives, and I truly appreciate that. But I would also want the public to know that not one of these people was under oath. Not one of them was bound to tell the truth. These are opinions, and you guys have them too. So just that's for more the public benefit than anything else. Mr. Chairman, several comments have been made about the section of code harmful to minors. I do not have that in front of me of what 39-17-901 actually says if we wanted to have legal read that so that it's clear to everyone exactly what we're referring to here, because a lot of misconceptions have been mentioned here this morning, this afternoon, and I certainly don't want any kind of cloud to hang over this committee or this bill that are misconceptions. This is very clear. The cases have been tried many, many times about this, and so if you would indulge having legal read that, I would appreciate it, sir.
All right. With that objection, we'll go out of session to hear from Legal Services.
Michelle Fogarty, Legal Services. TCA 3917-901, Subdivision 6 defines harmful to minors as meaning that quality of any description or representation in whatever form of nudity, sexual excitement, sexual conduct, excess violence, or sadomasochistic abuse when the matter or performance would be found by the average person applying contemporary community standards to appeal predominantly to the prurient, shameful, or morbid interest of minors, is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable for minors, and, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific values for minors.
Thank you. Any questions for Legal Services? Representative Johnson.
So this is already in the code, and it applies to...
You want to use your microphone? I'm sorry. That way we can hear you.
I like to look at people.
I know.
Okay. So this applies to anything. This is in the code. It applies to anything already. Do we need to duplicate this bill when we already have this in the code that we cannot do these things, whether it's a music concert, whether it's a drag show, whether it's a wrestling event? Doesn't it already apply?
This is the definition is as it applies to the part of Title 39, Chapter 17, Part 9, which is the part on obscenity. As to whether or not the body sees fit to do anything else, that's a policy decision.
It's already the obscenity in the obscenity law.
It's part of the definition. It's part of the definition. It's in definition
related to the obscenity law.
It's within the title, chapter, and part based on obscenity. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Legal Services? Seeing none, we'll go back into session. Any questions for our sponsor? I've got Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple minutes ago, the unintentional viewing of one of these performers was brought up. How would this bill affect somebody performing one of these shows or acts and a minor views it? Would they be in violation of this law if it passes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I firmly believe they would. It clearly states if it's going to be harmful to minors, and that's definition that you just heard, in any kind of public place or even in a venue that's closed that would have minors, it would be a violation for that entertainer.
What about one of these party buses that was described earlier?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No different than a party bus having literally strippers on it would be legal. This would cover that. This would make sure that anyone that would meet that definition is going to be in violation of the law.
And who investigates this and prosecutes it?
I mean, your district attorney, just like any other crime.
Through local law enforcement?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sherrill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment instead of a question. Listening to the testimony that we've heard today just makes you sick at your stomach. But I just want to say to you, Representative Todd, I appreciate you standing up for the rights of our children, trying to take care of our children, and trying to keep them safe. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments for our sponsor? Representative Johnson.
Yes, again, if you have any documentation or research that indicates someone has been damaged by this, is that something you can present to us? Because people are making assumptions when I haven't heard any evidence that any of this has ever been harmful to anyone.
Any other representatives wish to speak? Seeing none, we're now going to be voting on sending House Bill 9 as amended on the full criminal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The ayes prevail. The bill moves on. If you wish to be recorded as a no, please see the clerk. Members, that brings us to the end of our calendar. Are there anything else we need to discuss? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned until next week.